have Bogdan and Cristi taking us through powering up your data and synergizing Power BI and Power Apps. Over to you two.
Thank you very much. So, I guess I'm going to let Bogdan tell us who we are.
Yes.
Please,
you're gonna share that
Yes.
beautiful slide, although we already have our faces here.
The one and only slide of the session, because we couldn't build slides after what Alex showed last time. So we are not exposing ourselves.
Right. So a bit about us. I guess you've all heard about dynamic duos like Batman and Robin, Peanut Butter and Jelly, Netflix and Chill. Today, you get us. It's a partnership that's even more powerful. Me and Cristi. We've been working together for over 5 years now, which in tech terms is basically an eternity. And together we've tried turning Power BI and Power Apps and their integration into our playground. Cristi is the guy who makes data look like it actually wants to tell you something useful in Power BI, while me, I'm the guy who turns Power Apps and Power BIs into tools you actually enjoy using. And if you end up liking us after this session, you can find more of us and our snippets of knowledge on bitewise.digital on our blog, where we constantly put up posts. But enough about me. What do you have to say in your defense, Cristi?
In my defense, I can say that I don't like to talk about myself. So I will say that Bogdan just did just enough of justice. But what I can do is talk about what we are going to talk about today. So we have Alex Badiou, who's here with us today, talk to us about how we do writebacks from Power BI with the support of Power Apps. In today's session, we thought about looking from two different angles, meaning that how can we bring Power BI into Power Apps, and then continue on what Alex showed us and speak about how we can do writebacks from Power BI into a Fabric warehouse. So we thought about going wild and playing with the fire, which we did. There are some challenges when working with writebacks in the data warehouse that we are going to talk about a bit later. And the scenario we are talking about is a hardware company that provides both retail and services. The services now will be provided by superheroes, so I'm excited about that. And then we are going to look at two different personas so that we define how, based on the user story, we can focus on one application without having the users go out and disrupt the flow. This being said, I'm going to hand it over to Bogdan, who's going to start with the first persona.
Okay. So the first user journey is actually our superhero, which I'm going to be impersonating in Power Apps today, which is Captain America. And he is actually our field agent. He will be delivering the hardware and providing the service required. Just gonna put it up front. If you like the design, I strongly recommend checking out Tolu Victor. I found him on YouTube, and he has really nice designs. That's where I got inspired to create this kind of look. But now I'm gonna go into the app. So this app's whole idea is to be used on the move on a tablet. So we make use of bigger buttons, and also I try to present some insights as well, using these cards up top here. These cards, although they could have been made in Power BI and embedded, I've actually created them inside Power Apps and used some SQL views to show the data in them. On the bottom side, you can see a gallery, which you can actually switch between a more card-like view of the orders or a list view. It has all the information required for our agent, Captain America, to be performing all the cases that are assigned to him or rescheduled. So this gallery is already pre-filtered only for this user. Going further, selecting an order, you actually get all the details necessary to perform your duty well. And on the top side, we have all the information that cannot be changed that come with the order, like contact person and phone number, and also what kind of product and the quantity required to be serviced. While in the bottom part, we have quantity serviced and comments, and also a service done toggle, which is inputs from our agent to be sent back to the warehouse. Okay. Here, depending on the type of action, let's say our agent takes, which can be one of two, you have this toggle to switch between the scenarios. One scenario is and everything worked fine. Our hero went in, saved the day, delivered what had to deliver, and he has to input the quantity service and a comment. And in case he doesn't manage to do it, he unticks the service done, and then the quantity service changes to reschedule that. If you are curious about how this works, I've only used the visible property on the cards. This is a form. And I've checked the service toggle if it's checked or not. And I've done the same on the other card, just the reverse. Okay. For this scenario, I'm going to be using the scenario in which everything goes well, because we know superheroes get the job done. I'm just going to put in a 4 as quantity. We service the whole thing and just say that everything is good. Now, when we are writing back to the warehouse, we need to perform this with Power Automate, as we cannot write directly with Patch or submit the form.
And I can add here also the reason why. So the Fabric warehouse is not enforcing primary keys. In a warehouse that enforces primary keys, you could just patch. The moment this is not enforced automatically, the only way we can actually do it is by using a SQL statement to write back the data.
And I'm going to get into that SQL statement right now. So ignoring all this information in the formula bar, all we care about is this part, which runs the Power Automate, as this service toggle checked just checks for the scenario, for which I created 2 different Power Automates, one in the case where everything goes well, and one in the case where it needs to be rescheduled. The Power Automates can be created from Power Apps. On the left here, we have the Power Automate button, and I'm going to go into one right now, which is our scenario. This is an instant trigger Power Automate, which starts with the Power Apps input. What we have to do here is to actually ask what type of information we want to get from Power Apps, or what type of information Power Apps should send back to Power Automate. And we do this by adding inputs. And we have different data types here. In our case, I've used order number as text, comment as text, service done as a Boolean, true or false, and quantity serviced as a number. Then the next step would be executing the SQL query. This is pretty straightforward when it comes to server name. So it's your server, the database, and then the actual query, where we have to update our table, and we have to set a comment is actually the name of our column for comments, and we just put in the dynamic value that we've asked for in the first step, in the trigger step. So for the comment, it's comment, quantity serviced, so far and so forth. And I've also included a status, which is the name of our column that defines where in the workflow the order is. And this one I hard-coded, so no information required from Power Apps on this side. And where are we going to do that? We're going to do that where the order number is the same as the one that we received from Power App. After we've done this, we need some kind of a response to be sent back to Power Apps to confirm the execution. And we do this with the step called respond to a Power App or flow. This is the default naming. Here, I've just included something random. I just need something to be sent back to the Power Apps to confirm the execution. But in case you want to use this to, I don't know, make a custom notification that everything is fine, or if it didn't work fine, you can use this as an output to be sent back to Power Apps. Good. Now we're going to go back to Power Apps. And here on the complete button, we're going to go through it again. So we do this, we run the Power App by selecting it, using its name, the name that we've used when creating the Power Automate. .run, and then in parentheses, the PowerFX formula requires us all the inputs that we've previously mentioned in the Power Automate in the same order. So I started with the order number that I take from the gallery, and we can see it here, and it's text. The comment, which is also text. The service toggle that confirms if the job has been done or not, which is a Boolean, in our case true, as it is checked. And last but not least, the quantity serviced, which is a number, in our case 4, the value that we've inputted. I'm going to go ahead and send this forward. Now the Power Automate runs, it writes back into the database. And if we are lucky enough and there we go. The warehouse actually worked with us this time, and it actually refreshed the data, and we see the updated number of assigned orders, because we've moved one assigned order from assigned to completed. Good. Now we kind of finished our work on the field, but we want to know more about how we did in the rest of the time. For that, we have a Power BI integration here. It's a Power BI tile that has been added into Power Apps, which keeps all the same functionality as a regular Power BI that you see in the service. So you can actually interact with it, filter anything, move around, do whatever you want. The powerful thing here, or the thing that I consider most interesting, is actually using controls from Power Apps, in our case, some drop-downs and combo boxes, to filter the data in the report, in the embedded report. And I'm just going to go ahead and filter something so you can see what's happening. All right, so I filtered for neighborhood, Lower Manhattan. We get everything on the page filtered. And we've also included here the information, so you see this is coming from Power BI. And also I'll go ahead with a client, let's say NetWizards, and we see everything getting filtered. How we achieve that. And now the fun part, let's go into the code. So as you can see, and I'm going to show you here on the left, this is just a Power BI tile, nothing more. The interesting part is when you're trying to write the actual embed URL, or to be more specific, passing the parameters back to the URL. The code that is actually used now, quite long and complex, so I'm going to go to the let's say, default or basic embedding of the URL so we understand how this works. When we embed a Power BI anywhere, we basically get just this link up until this point. This is the basic embedding of a URL. Afterwards, we can pass parameters down to the URL directly into the address bar or whatever you're using by connecting them with the and sign. What I've done here is actually hiding the navigation pane by setting it to false, and I can show you what happens if I set it to true. But I'm going to do this.
You want to do it down.
Yes. And now we can see down here that the navigation pane is enabled. So we get to hide that as we don't need it. We can also direct users straight to a specific page or a report section as well. You can also see here that I've hidden the filter pane. And the page view sets the size of the page, and there's two options, actual size and fit to width. We went with actual size as it was the best, let's say, option for us. Then, the fun part, the filtering. So the filtering happens with, again, the connector and we start by saying filter, and I've written it down here so we can see the actual syntax. It's filter equals table name / column name, then equals, and the value you want to filter. Integrating this with Power Apps with the actual control, be it a text box, combo box, a drop down, anything you want, is done like this. So for us, the table name is company logos, the column name is client name. Then we had to encode the URL. So instead of space, we've used the %sign and 20. And then here, getting out of the, let's say, double quotation, we use the one quotation mark. And then here, specifying the actual value. The value to filter is being taken from client selector, which is my dropdown, .selected.value. Then I go back into the URL and everything gets concatenated. Now to the more complex formula, which I've tried to do just because I wanted everything to be in a single liner, even if it's formatted. I like it in a single liner. So I went through the 3 scenarios that can happen in our case. First of which is if both drop-downs, both combo boxes are blank or empty. And this was something that gave me a lot of headaches, as I've tried using the modern controls, which I can recommend because they're pretty, but I cannot recommend because they're not trustworthy yet. The problem I encountered is that whenever you have nothing selected as you would load up the page, it comes as blank, and that's fine. But whenever you try to remove an option, so you selected something and want to remove it, then it comes up as empty. Weird behavior. So I had to take both of them into consideration. What I'm doing here is basically checking if the neighborhood selector, NH selector, and the client selector, are my 2 drop-downs, are blank or empty. In which case, I'm not adding anything to the URL. So I'm keeping the default embed URL without the filter. Then I took it one by one, and in case I had a filter only on client name, I just added this part, which is by using concatenate, I added the filter on client name using the selector and also the embed to end the string. Then if it's only on neighborhood, I did the same thing, but the other way around. And in case both of them are selected, I use both, but the caveat here is that there's another connector needing to be added, and this is AND. I know it's hard to see, but it's there. All right. So this would be the filtering. Now, I would like to show you also how to add the tile, for which I have a blank page here. I'm going to insert a Power BI tile. By default, this one connects to a workspace, a dashboard, then a specific tile, and you should see only the tile. How do I get the whole report in? Well, first of all, I select the workspace in which my report is, and then I'm gonna just steal the code from, not the form, but analytics. I'm gonna steal the default view from here. I'm going to go back. So this is the default embed URL. Okay. And now, instead of selecting a dashboard and a tile and all that, I can go to the tile URL property of the Power BI tile. And between the quotation marks, just paste it. And I know I've copied it with one extra one. And there we have it. Now we have the whole report embedded instead of a single tile. And you can do all kinds of stuff with this one. Now my job on the field is done. I suppose I can say Captain America signing out, and I'm going to pass it over to our trustworthy, how did we call it? Because I keep forgetting it.
Yeah, I don't know what you're referring to, but I forget.
The desk guy.
Yeah. A couple of questions.
Yes,
Is it?
I am the
Yeah.
Yes, of course, we are going to go back also to my boring dispatcher job, but we do have a couple of questions here.
Yes.
Yeah. That was, I mean, it looks so simple and effective visually, but I can imagine it must have taken quite some time to work out the logic, Bogdan, and get the, I'm not a Power Apps expert. I've got solutions working in Power Apps, which Christy has helped me with a couple of times. But I mean, that's quite, to actually go back and forth and iterate to get that working. That must have taken quite something.
The logic part was easy. What was hard is getting Power Apps to cooperate with me.
Yes. Yes. And how long have you been
convincing
working
Bogdan to also format the code. That also took a couple of hours. To
format the code?
Yeah. I'm used to just keeping it more or less in line, not this disparate. I just like it that way. And Christy couldn't read anything, so I started formatting the code just so she can see as well and understand as well.
Is there not like a little, like with Power Query, you've got a Power Query formatter?
No. My world is even better, so I just press format text and it's done.
It depends. We are going to also see a scenario where this works in our disadvantage.
Yeah. And then there's another question from James who said, do you face any challenges when you have large data sets when you do this? Do formulas need to be delegable? I don't know if I pronounced that right, to prevent limitations on filtering and data?
Definitely. So that's the single worst nightmare of any Power Apps developer, which is delegation.
Yeah.
Whenever I encounter that, I try to split the data. Maybe.
So for me, is not a Power Apps. What do you mean by that?
Delegation.
Delegatable.
Okay.
Delegatable. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you want to do a filter or a search, you have to send the query back to the database, telling I want to filter this, I want to search that, and then the database has to send the response back. There are some functions that can be done server side, so let's say source side on your data source, and some that can't be done there and should be done by Power Apps. In which case, Power Apps has a limitation starting with 500 rows. After 500 rows, it doesn't guarantee that it will do a great job. It can still do a great job, but it doesn't guarantee it. And after 2,000 rows, it starts to say, I cannot guarantee anything.
Okay. That is a problem.
And to answer the question, whenever I encountered this, for example, I had the delegation issue on the home screen for these cards, where I had to do basic aggregation, like counts and sorts. That's not delegable. So Power Apps cannot really handle that. So I had to create views in SQL and then connect to them.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Bogdan. That was really clear. Thank you.
And I think an important note to make is on the delegation, it's important to also check the documentation, because there are sources that have different type of allowed actions that can be taken that can break the delegation.
Yes.
So a bit like
whenever you're using SharePoint, let's say the delegable functions are the list of them is way smaller than when you're using SQL, for example.
Yeah, that makes
where a lot
sense.
more can be delegated towards SQL.
Yeah, it's a bit like query folding, really, within Power Query.
Exactly like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll stop now.
Go ahead, Christy.
We still have a comment from Eric, and he's right. The way we did the embed was we just went with, in our case, this was an F64 trial. So in that case, the user would not require a license to view the report. But if I would share or embed a report that sits in a shared capacity, meaning pro licensing workspace, then this would then require the user to also have our Power BI Pro license. This is true. And that's an important note to make.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to my boring dispatch job. I'm no superhero. I'm just giving them work. So you should be able to see my screen. I hope. Yes, no, maybe yes, we see the screen. So welcome to my boring dispatcher job. Now, on the dispatch job, there's one difference compared to our superheroes. Our superheroes know upon what they need to action. In my case, I do need the context of the data to draw the conclusion who would need to do what. So for this, we are going to talk about putting in Power Apps inside of the Power BI report. If it sounds familiar and you have a deja vu, this is right. Same recommendation, like we always mention it when we talk about the Power Apps into the Power BI integration, is complete the report from a design standpoint, publish it, and only then we are going to start adding the Power Apps visual. How do we do this? So the way we did build it is, first, we had the data in our warehouse. We need to connect and create a semantic model. We didn't want to use the default one. We created our own semantic model because we also needed to add during and throughout the time measures and additional measures that we forget about. Then we created the report. We published it. We went into the service. We clicked on the edit button. And then from the visualization pane, we have the Power Apps visual. We are going to select it. That's going to be added on the screen. Now I see that the map is trying to run away. Not going to run away. And on the Power Apps visual, we'll need to select what are the data points that we want to pass over to Power Apps. Those fields are very important because they are also going to provide context. The moment we do a selection on the screen, that selection is also going to be passed over to Power Apps. Once we selected the fields, in our case, I'm not going to recreate the app. I'm just going to go into editing the app. So I'm going to go into the more options and then click on the edit button. This is going to go into focus mode of the visual, and it's going to open the app in a different tab. It's going to take a while, so we can still have a chit chat. Unless the demo gods will not strike back. We're making fun of how long it takes.
They're too scared of you, Christy. They'll behave, I'm sure. We're loving the design. They're really nice, simple designs that you've got there with the colour and the less is more approach, I think.
Now you made somebody very happy. Very, very happy.
It's my motto.
Is it? Less is more?
Yeah. Well, mine is a bit more rude, let's say. Mine is KISS. Keep it simple,
stupid. Yeah. It's all right. I got. If we're chatting, I got a project named after me today for the data engineering side. I'm a killer whale. They've called all their projects sea animals. So mine's a killer whale called Sue.
It sounded a bit dramatic, to be honest.
Well, no, it's nice. Did you study design, Bogdan?
Yep.
Yeah. It shows.
Okay. The Democrats are do striking, so give me a second.
Yeah, crypto related with whales, it does. So it doesn't. So the fact that you study design means that I can feel a little bit less insecure about the amazing visualizations that you're achieving.
Well, you shouldn't.
Mm.
Now you're also reading the blog, so
Yes,
not
yeah,
for long.
I did. I was had lots of time in airports recently, so I was flicking through reading them.
That's what you receive when you mock the demo gods?
Ah.
The place of wonders.
Incorporated. Don't forget about incorporated.
Oh,
Oh, we've got the map back.
yes. And hopefully also the power apps.
Oh, look, you've got my our GitHub site on your shortcuts,
Of course I have.
your bookmarks.
If it's not like if I do not feel like at home here for coming the third time to present. So, welcome to the same design canvas from Power Apps. Now, compared to what Bogdan showed you before, we do have an important difference here. The moment we started creating the app through the Power Apps visual from Power BI, we do have an additional icon that you are going to see here, which is the actual Power BI integration. I'm not going to go into too much details. Go to the YouTube channel of the user group 2 weeks ago. We had an in-depth session around how this is done and why this is important. I'm going to talk about one important aspect that I had to face in the past while working with that, and what happens if you are building the Power Apps and then linking it to the Power BI visual. There is a limitation that comes with it also, besides the fact that they can have a weird behavior. But the moment the app gets created, we are going to have the screen one and the gallery one. Now, the gallery one is nothing else but the data that we provided from Power BI into Power Apps. So the data points we selected on the field selection are the ones that are going to be provided here, and we can use them in the gallery to display the data. It's important to mention the display part because we are going to use also in this case 2 different data sources. One is the data coming from Power BI, which we are going to display, which has context. And then we are going to have the underlying data source on which we are going to perform the writeback. On the gallery, we are going to use the Power BI data for the context. It's going to filter. I'm going to show it when we do the live demo again. But then we also have the form in which users can display information. Same principle. Whatever is not editable is going to be shown as such. And then we have the 2 part where users can appoint the dispatches. So I'm just going to send a dispatch on the 24th. And because Captain America just finished the job of one delivery, we are going to send him again. Now, let me show you what happens when we click the button, because that's an interesting part. I think we did spend some time creating that stuff. And after you get to see the 2 screens, I'm going to explain why we did that. Which is A little bit of a downside that we noticed while working with the Writebacks and directly. We had this idea of creating the demo based on a live connection so that we see how the figures will change. In a direct query mode, the writeback would normally be faster. In a direct lake connection, we notice that there's a delay for around 15 seconds from when the writeback happened until we are going to see the data. And we thought about how can we cater for that so that somebody doesn't sit and look at the screen for 15 seconds. And we came up with the idea of having the loading screens that are going to switch. Let me go and select the button. That's an example of formatting gone wrong. So also the Power Apps formatting isn't the best sometimes. But we are going to do the writeback. We are not going to go into the Power Automate flow and how this is done. This is exactly the same type of statement. We need to provide the inputs. We are going to provide the inputs from Power Apps. Those are to be transferred into the set statement in Power Automate. But the moment the data has been sent and the flow has been triggered, we are going to first create that blur effect on the screen. And then we are having to have for each screen that you've seen with the loading of SVG, we are going to have a timer of between 5 and 4 seconds. We chose to be at around 16 seconds in total, but have the screen switch so that it doesn't feel as heavy of just looking at the screen and waiting. Bogdan would definitely correct me and tell me that there's a UX term for that. Feel free to actually do it. But the moment we have those screens loading, this is going to feel a little bit less lengthy than what would happen if I would just look at the screen and just wait for something to happen. And the important part comes at the end. I did mention at the beginning about the fact that it's important in a live connection to start the Power Apps creation from inside Power BI. I think we had two experiences so far where we did it outside, and there's a big caveat to that because after the flow runs and those 16 seconds pass, we also want to force Power BI to perform a visual refresh, which is done through the Power BI integration.refresh. We had at least one case where the app was built outside, and the effect of that is that this action, this Power FX formula, is not going to work. This will only work if the app got created from inside the Power BI. There are ways to trick it, but I wouldn't advise going somebody through the trouble of making this work because the app was created outside of Power BI. And then the last action is just to go on the navigate screen. Now, we've seen how this works. So let's just close this one. Let's go back to Power BI and see how this works. So we discussed about context. So if I'm going to select something on the map, of course, the Power App is going to filter if it wants to operate a bit. Oh, okay. Let me go into the reading view. Correct, because I forgot about the reading view. So again, let's select the data point. The gallery automatically adapts to the selection that I did. Let's also make it full screen. And now I would want to assign this order. Demo gas track again. And have a dispatch date. So let's say we are going to send it at the end of the month. And then we are going to send Ironman for that. Let's hit the assign order button. Good. So we are in the second step, third step now, and then we go into just cleaning up the mess. And I think we have a higher delay than 50 seconds right now. And the number went down, but I think right now after around 17 seconds. But yeah, I mean, that's from an integration standpoint. I don't know if you have any questions, because this part we tried to keep as light as possible because we did talk about this integration in depth in the past.
There are no questions, just saying it's useful for the users to understand that, you know, if they know that it's going to take longer. But like you said, most people haven't got the patience. We're just so accustomed now to it being click, 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 aren't we? That and not waiting.
Thing is, I mean, we worked initially on a weekend.
Yeah.
We've seen that the delay was a bit lower. Now, for example, I've seen that the delay got higher than what we had as benchmark so far, because at some point while we were testing the integration, we were like literally counting the seconds so that we know after how many seconds the data appeared.
Yeah.
But I think on that evening we've done our due diligence and sacrificed for the demo gods.
Yeah.
Today we didn't.
True.
Yeah. The trouble is,
There's
it's one of those things,
Christy, regarding the Power BI integration.refresh.
PBI.refresh. What does that refresh on the report from James?
So in our case, and in the case of a direct query or a live connection, what the Power BI integration.refresh is going to do is the same thing. Like I would just force the refresh of the visuals. We have this button on the report that triggers the refresh of the visuals. That's exactly what will happen when that step is going to get executed.
Yeah. And another question, Power Automate, how do you learn it? So Takami is asking for any recommendations.
I mean, I can provide my own experience on Power Automate since I do have the screen sharing on.
Yeah.
So initially, I started learning Power Automate because I'm a lazy person. I will be very honest. And I started working with it to automate very small parts of my job, like have some attachments being saved when a certain email gets received.
That's how I started. Yeah.
I would really recommend starting incremental. The amazing part of Power Automate is that we also have some predefined templates. So if I go on the templates on the left navigation side, there are a lot of templates that you can take a look at. And the amazing part, you also get to see how the structure was created. And then I think I started playing more around with it. First for the dynamic automation of Power BI data flows and semantic model refreshes. And then very, very heavy lately, since last year, we received run a query against a dataset action in Power Automate that lets you write a duck statement that's going to get run against the semantic model.
Yeah, I think my workflow was probably the same as yours at first, to automate downloads that were sent through by email. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. And then now it's using semantic models and DAX queries to do things to semantic models. But I must admit, I do find sometimes that. Yeah.
But it can be really helpful, and the run a query against the dataset action can lead to all sorts of possible scenarios of leveraging the data further.
Yeah, and once you've got it working, it just works. It's just, you know, it's just getting that working. Yeah. Oh, well done, Christy. You've got to learn it under duress, Bogdan. Sorry, I'll stop asking questions. Yeah, but you've got an excellent teacher though, Bogdan. I only get him to help me
Yeah.
when I get really, really stuck.
That was the lucky part. He forced me to do it, but he was there to help me both understand it and learn it.
Mm. It gets it's very rare, but very occasionally I'll go, help.
True.
Yeah. Okay. Anything
Good.
further?
I think I'm going to join back because I can't stop the screen sharing.
Okay. Power apps with a list of Power Builder. Ah, that's a good one there. I think Christie's frozen. Yeah, that's a good one there, Alex. Power app with a list of Power BI reports. And then build a Power Automate launch on Power Apps. I'm in awe of that, Alex. I'll have to think of the workflow of how you do that. Nigel, do you really love DAX?
I think what Alex said there is the Power Platform side of a tongue twister.
Yeah.
More like a brain twister.
It is a brain. I was trying to think of the workflow of how I would do it all. Yeah, I love DAX. I do quite like DAX, but when it gets too hard, I always look at my model and think, how can I make it easier? So we're back over to you, Christy. Anything, did it crash on you?
Yeah, it did when I had to restart the browser. Apparently also Teams froze. So I guess that's why I couldn't do it.
Yeah. So what are your takeouts from preparing for this session? Because this must have taken quite some time.
It took some days to build it all together. But I'm going to be honest, it was also a painful yet nice experience of working with the Fabric elements. I think that's also what motivated us of using the Fabric trial for the demo. I was a bit disappointed because I was not aware that the semantic model created within Fabric does not support the row level security without activating it to the XMLA endpoint.
Oh, right. So explain that further.
So I mean,
because I haven't, I've built direct lake from the semantic model within within Fabric, but I haven't looked at row level security yet.
I can actually show it. That's easier to understand.
Yes, please.
So I'm going to go into the custom semantic model. We did not use the default semantic model.
Yeah. I don't know why. I know you shouldn't use the demand, the default, but I don't understand why.
First, if you need to perform further updates, they are not that straightforward.
Yeah. Okay.
So we are going to open up the data model because you want to edit it. And now it appears. Yesterday it wasn't. Okay, nice.
Is it there now in there?
It is there now because I was also finding it funny. Just yesterday I wrote a blog post on LinkedIn from Daniel Oettinger, who helped us with the XMLA script also for the field parameters. Field parameters are another limitation, which we can't do without using the XMLA endpoint from the tabular editor side.
Yeah. So you attach the tabular editor to the XMLA endpoint and then do the field parameters. And then Christy said then that, but using the XMLA endpoint then will prevent you downloading the file.
That's also the reason for which we didn't really try it out yesterday and in the weekend, because we wanted to avoid that the moment we touch it to the XMLA endpoint, that's the only way going further from that standpoint. We are only going to provide updates or update it through the XMLA endpoint.
Yeah.
Even though I think Christy can correct me, but there are also tools to do it, to download the file. Not that straightforward, but I think there is a tool that can do it. To still download the PBX file.
I'm sure there is. I'm just wondering whether it was, if you save it as a PBIP, and then I'm sure there is. Yeah, same, Christian. I'm sure Semantic Link Labs and a blog from Data Goblins. There you go, Semantic Link Labs.
Well, we do have Michael in 2 weeks, no?
Yeah, 2 weeks at lunchtime. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I haven't cut you off or anything, have I? Is there not?
No, it's not.
No. Good. Any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask Christy and Bogdan any questions. Oh, thank you, Anthony. So Anthony's put the blog post in there when you can't download the PBIX. Kurt is very, very good, isn't he? Yeah. Just look at that, wrap silence. So I think it just remains to say thank you very, very much. That was absolutely brilliant. I just in awe, really, of the visualization and the smoothness and the way that you can get, the whole Power Platform working, and the simplicity of your explanations. You've made it very easy to understand. Quick question from Aurora. For the dispatcher report and app, what licenses are required?
So for the dispatcher side, if somebody goes with an F64 capacity, then the consumption, meaning the distribution, is included. So there's no Power BI Pro license required. Yet the user will require a Power Apps Premium license because we wrote back to a SQL database, which is a premium action. And the same is true for the superheroes. When they do the dispatches, they require the Power Apps Premium license, with the note that we ran Power Automate inside Power Apps. So even if the action that we took in Power Automate requires a premium license, the Power Automate license is not required because the flow is run in the context of Power Apps. So that's included in the Power Apps Premium license.
So it's incredible, isn't it? The licensing can be quite complex as well as the code.
On the Power Platform, it can become a nightmare.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, considering, I mean, I'm going to be, maybe I was harsh. If you have the right governance in place, the flexibility you have on the licensing can be a blessing. For a client who doesn't have the governance in place, which includes also pay-as-you-go modelings, it can become a black box.
Yeah, which is then difficult if you're actually building projects for development. Christian said, how often are projects like these requested? Do you think?
If I think back at all the years, real-time tracking like this, I don't think we've done more than 2.
No more than 2. Yeah, the Writeback I do, I've done quite a few times where people can but that's just like a little Power App embedded in Power BI that then writes back. But using SharePoint, are simple, not as complex as this. Takami said, it's great to see your creation, beautiful design and amazing collaboration with Power Apps, Power BI and Power Automate. Anthony said, for Power BI integration, what licenses?
So there is no license required because we are not going the real embed route.
Okay.
The moment we do the portal embed, this follows the same type of licensing the workspace would also require.
Okay. And Alex said, did you think about an architecture using data first instead of data warehousing?
Yes, that's how our initial demo was built. But with the caveat that Dataverse is still also a premium feature, so it would still require the Power Apps premium licenses.
Yeah. It's a lot to learn, isn't it? So which is your passion then, you two? Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI? Which is your preferred?
For me?
I'm
Or both of
I'll
us?
let Bogdan go first because you know my passion.
Okay. So for me is the UX and design, and wherever I can get to do that, I prefer that. But lately I get more action on that side from Power Apps. So I would say my favorite at the moment is Power Apps.
Yeah, and then being able to use your design within Power Apps. And then I posted the link to the guy on the YouTube that you said was particularly good. And Christy, for those that don't know you?
My passion is and pen will be Power BI because I do like to have those data-driven actions.
Yeah.
But I can see that I have a hobby in regards to Power Automate.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And now that you mentioned, I'm also going to paste the blog link again because I just remembered my first blog post was about embedding. So if somebody wants to read that in more details, just go and scroll up all the way to the bottom. And my first blog post was around embedding.
Yeah, they're really nice blog posts. I'm quite into Python again at the moment. I'm liking the whole data architecture and engineering using Python.
Yeah, but I mean, I've also started, but I'm starting from scratch. You just went back to the passion.
Yeah. I'll help you. You help me. Oh, yes. Takami said, is Bogdan going to give us the design-related webinar?
Maybe.
Yeah, that would be a good one. Definitely. Anyway, lovely people. Thank you so much. Oh, data engineering, DP700 started in beta today. I'm just prepping for retaking my my DP600 again. That's coming up for renewal. So once I've got that one done, then I'm thinking of the DP700. I just like seeing how things work. But yeah, that is deep waters. Any further questions? Yeah, mine's been sat on my pin for about 2 months, Christian. Right, I pin things at the top to remind me. So thank you ever so much, everyone. The recording will be posted to YouTube, our Devon and Cornwall site, which will be, have I got the link? Anthony will put the link in for me, won't you, Anthony? So it'll be posted to our Devon and Cornwall YouTube site, which we'll be able to access, which will be brilliant because you can stop it, pause it, etc. And for those of you, I am so sorry I put the time in at 7. I completely forgot and put it. I don't know why I put it in at 7, but it should be 6. So we are back at 6 o'clock next week with the one and only Christy Angel. Who is going to be taking us through Power Query and lots of different types of joins and what's most effective. And it's a session that he did at SQL, no, not SQL Bits, that he did for us at FabCon, which will be, joins everywhere, the magic of joins. And then after that, we've got Michael Kowalski on Semantic Link Labs, followed then by Christina Ferris, who will be also going through some Python and SMP for us.
Nice. That's the second part, right?
Yes, second part. So I think Michael will probably blow our brains, and then Christina will come and show, everyone should join. Oh, you're on form, Alexandro. So we shall look forward to next week, and Christian has the challenge to be finished in an hour. An hour. This marathon runner needs her hot yoga. So Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
I can only imagine the amount of work. It was really interesting and helpful. No, don't speak faster. Cut something. Yeah, don't speak faster. But he will be brilliant, as were you two. So Romania, you are doing amazing. And we will see you all very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. And thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Recording is stopped.